No matter what you collect, it's always fun to find what you're looking for in the store, in the wild. The thrill of the hunt to locate what you want at brick and mortar. These days we're seeing the death of brick and mortar and the death of the thrill of the hunt, but I really want to talk about why. Because everybody just wants to blame Hasbro's distribution, but I think everybody is equally responsible. Hasbro, retailers, collectors. We're going to talk about all this coming up. When most people think about the Power of the Force 2 figures, they think worthless, junk, whatever. When I think of Power of the Force 2, I think about the most fun I ever had collecting any toy line ever because they were available at retail. Because if you worked hard enough, you could find every one of them at retail. Even the harder to find ones showed up at retail. Yes, that's because they made a bajillion of them. So whether you collect Marvel Legends or you collect Transformers at retail or you collect Star Wars, I'm going to talk about Star Wars because it's the greatest example of the biggest fallen star of the toy collecting community. In 2015, there was a lot of excitement surrounding The Force Awakens. So this is going to be an installment of 30 years later after the original trilogy. It almost is as if the prequels didn't exist. And I know a lot of original trilogy lovers hated the prequels. And so now we get into the sequel trilogy, and J.J. Abrams doing good work, which I think he did great work on Star Trek. And we're hearing all the great things about real-world sets, less digital effects, and more real-world feel to make it feel more like the original trilogy. The goal of this movie and all three movies was to link the original cast to the new cast, to pass the torch of Star Wars on to new people, and to kind of kill off the old characters. That was expected. One thing that Star Wars The Force Awakens and all three of these movies did, but The Force Awakens did the most, was generate collector interest. So there were a lot of new collectors brought into collecting Star Wars, and they wanted original trilogy, but instead they got this. And of course the stuff didn't sell. It had to go to clearance, and the merchandise clogged up shelves, warehouses clogged up distribution centers. And why did this happen? Well, it happened because Hasbro mass produced these things. They also got tons of orders from retailers. Everybody thought because the Star Wars name was on it, it was going to be a big hit. But they didn't realize that the stuff that was a big hit in the past, the big hit stuff was based on the original trilogy. And now these things are good. I think they did okay with them. But the reality is that most collectors didn't want this stuff. Collectors always wanted the original trilogy stuff. They wanted the vintage stuff. They wanted something that reminded them of vintage, and they didn't get it at this time. In 2015, all you got was a bunch of Force Awakens characters and figures in droves. Now, left nothing for these collectors to buy. What did it do? It shot the collector market up on the secondary market through the roof on eBay and collectible stores. So people started chasing down actual vintage more than the new stuff in the store. People chased down older versions of vintage collection more than they sought out the new stuff. So The Last Jedi comes along, and it is not the best reception of a movie that we've seen in the Star Wars franchise. A lot of people hated it. Some people loved it. And there's, a lot of people in the middle. The reality is that they really flopped. Hasbro flopped at the toy line. Retailers flopped at the toy line. And let's get into talking about why. One of the reasons was there's still so much Force Awakens product clogging up distribution channels even years later when the next movie comes out. Now, we didn't see this back in the vintage era. We did see it from The Phantom Menace, But somehow they were able to clear that out by the next movie. It didn't stop it. But instead of just moving on to giving us original trilogy characters and stuff that we want, they went even deeper and they gave us the same stuff that was clogging up shelves in new packaging. Now, some people say, oh, well, they just repackaged the same million figures that they had. Maybe that was what happened. But to just literally put the exact same thing out that nobody wants, it's already on the shelf, nobody wants the thing, and they're going to make it again. That made no sense. At this point, Force Awakens stuff should have been buried in the desert next to Atari video games. The Atari ET phenomenon that was buried. And they actually dug these up and started selling them. But they should have just done something with these Force Awakens figures. Guess what? Walmart discounted Black Series figures to 3 cents. 3-cent Black Series figures. That's about as close as just burying these in the desert as you're going to get. By the time Rise of Skywalker came out, Hasbro basically canceled the entire Rise of Skywalker line, went back to Vintage Collection, went back to even the Rise of Skywalker figures that were put out on Vintage Collection. They canceled the 5 POA, they streamlined everything. They did the moves they should have done in the first place, but it took them 3 movies. But then they gave the Vintage Collection the kiss of death. These things didn't sell at all. And they're still on the shelves today. In fact, that's probably all you're going to find on your shelf today. So now this leads into a slew of problems. When you go to retail, you're hit and miss. Sometimes you might find something, sometimes you won't. And we're not talking about 1 or 2 days apart. We're talking about months, 3, 4 months till you see something new. And if you're not the one there when it's put out, then you're out of luck. The other part of the problem is that waves, entire waves, don't even hit retail. You'll have to order it from online sources. And we're going to get into the problem with ordering online, because that's coming up. Because there's a whole slew of problems ordering online. But looking at this, these figures never saw retail. If they did see, well, they got repacks. But if they did see retail, I never saw them. Wait, there's 5 people in the whole world that actually got them at retail. So another issue is there's less outlets, less places to go, less places to get that thrill of the hunt. Another issue is retailers have been burned. They have been burned by ordering what's available to order, and they don't order big ticket items anymore. So for that, Hasbro won't put big ticket items in retail. They don't make enough of them to hit retail. Hence, HasLab was created. Now, I've got the HasLab Cell Barge. I'm getting the Unicron. I understand why they're doing it, but it never needed to get to this level because they let it get to this level. Now we have HasLab. We also have Matty Collector. They were doing that before HasLab. We also have street dated items. If you haven't seen anything for months new on your shelf, you finally see something new, street dated. Well, I never heard of a street date for any of this stuff. This stuff has already been out in the market for years, in some items a decade. But yet now, all of a sudden, there's a street date on it because of the new card back and the new packaging and all of this, and I have it in front of me and I can't buy it. That frustrates me. Then I get to watch 2 different cashiers slam them around and mess the packaging up in front of me. And then I walk out not upset at the people that worked there, didn't make a scene, wasn't mean to them, but I'm making this video talking about this whole situation. I left and I realized all that stuff's going to be on ultra clearance down to $6-7 one day because they're all repacks. They are all just repacks. They're not new figures. None of this stuff's new. None of this stuff. I have 5 or 6 of one of those, the ATST driver already. I don't need any more. But I want the new packaging. I wanted it, but I wasn't so upset because it's not really anything new. But you have street dated items, and then you have a line of 153 people standing in line to buy 4 figures that they're guaranteed to have 4 figures there for you on Force Friday. So that event kind of sucks itself, because I went to Force Friday at midnight. It used to be a midnight thing. Nobody anywhere knew about it or heard of it or had any clue it was going on. The next day around 8 or 9 in the morning, of course, some stuff gets put out by one person that happens to know what's going on, and 83 people snatch it up within 12 seconds. Where's the thrill in the hunt of that? Then we get into exclusives. So, hey, it sounds great. There's going to be this exclusive Boba Fett. They're even going to put it on Hasbro Pulse. And this thing sells out in seconds. It's not even up live for 1 minute, and it sells out. Now, we're wondering how many they really put out, but it's insane, and I'm not going to chase that thing. If I don't get it at retail, I don't even want it anymore. Heck, if I don't get it online for retail price, I no longer want it. Same thing with this 2 vintage collection figures that we'll never see again, or will we? With the Mouse Droid and Salacious Crumb, it's crazy that these 2 figures were part of like a $150 set that you could only get at SDCC, and then they never made it available. Here's my thing on exclusives. If you have exclusive and you can still get the figure somewhere else, that's cool. Add in a bunch of accessories I'll never get, and that's great. But make these figures unavailable to everyone else in the world? I'm sorry, I don't go to SDCC, and this year it's canceled. All those things are going to get put on Hasbro Pulse, and they're going to sell out in seconds. I guarantee it. So I want to get into talking about collectors and their role in all this. Now, collectors have a little bit of blame. I'm to blame. But after a while, we kind of didn't ever really get what we wanted. So we started waiting and seeing stuff go on clearance. When you start seeing stuff that's normally like $30, sell for $6, it starts to condition your collecting, condition your retail expectation to be everything that's going to be on that shelf will eventually go to that clearance aisle, and you can get it for next to nothing. And that's how I felt for years and years of all of this stuff hitting clearance for next to nothing and feeling stupid for paying full price for anything. That's where I was. But we're not there anymore. Some stuff will never hit clearance because it will never hit retail, and it will not have to get clearanced out. And some of the things will sell for a premium no matter what. In fact, if you order online, most times you're going to have to pay for premium. And this is what I'm doing now. I'm ordering things online. I'm pre-ordering them online. I'm paying what I feel like is a little bit too much, but I know I'm going to get it. I know I'm not going to have to go to retail every day, but I'm losing that thrill of the hunt. I don't want to lose the thrill of the hunt. There are some retailers such as Dorkside Toys and Sure Thing Toys, which I have bought from, and they are fine. They work great, but they expect you to pay for your pre-orders upfront 100%. Guess what? That's why they're still in stock. All the other ones where you don't have to pay anything until you get it or it's in stock, those are the ones that sell out in seconds. But when you gotta front some money, it takes a little thinking, takes a little bit of time. When you want to front that money to buy this stuff, guess what? You're a real buyer. You're not just someone who wants to get that pre-order in. Let me know what you guys think. Where are you with this whole brick and mortar collapse of the thrill of the hunt? Do you still show up to look at empty shelves while you're doing your grocery shopping? Or have you completely given up on retail? Let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe. Tadarium Hanger out.